Welcome to the Boundless Bible. My name is David Shapiro.
Hey, I'm Javi Marquez.
And I'm Jason Holloway.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Boundless Bible.
Boundless Bible time.
What's going on?
How's it going?
You know.
Doing good.
Today, Jesus heals a paralytic. This is comes from Mark 2, 1 through 12. It also comes from Luke 5, 17 through 26.
And
a very short one in Matthew 9, 1 through 8. Some miracles begin with someone else's faith.
ooh,
I just feel like this is a story where it's other people's faith that helped heal this paralytic with the, honestly, with Christ doing it.
Yeah.
So, kind of setting the stage really quickly, Jesus is healing like crazy. When you're looking at
Right.
Luke, he heals many, then he preaches in synagogue, he calls his disciples, he cleanses a leper. And then he's going and he is teaching, and there are Pharisees and teachers of the law sitting around. People are all over the place. They're filtering into a house that he's in, which a lot of academic people think this happens to be Peter's house. It doesn't really have a whole lot to do with the story.
in Capernaum.
In Capernaum, just kind of setting the stage of where he might be. And these people are all pressing and listening to his teachings.
Right.
So he's already somebody who has established
Right.
people that want to hear what he has to say.
He was on a world healing tour.
Yeah, it was.
So right now we have all these people around, and there are a bunch of friends who are carrying their other friend who's a paralytic on his bed, and there's no way for them to access Jesus. They
Right.
can't get in.
Right.
They know he's been healing. They have faith in his healing powers, and they have to go up on the roof and try to lower him from there. But even before we get to the part where they lower him down,
Right.
first of all, these were not roofs that are like, we think of, maybe a little hut, a little mud hut.
Yeah.
Make a little, hole in it. These were made of clay, sticks, tile. It took a great amount of effort to rip a hole in it.
Yeah.
There would have been falling debris. It would have been a huge scene.
A big scene. Yeah.
And then even more than that, in Jewish tradition, this is a serious matter. Under Jewish law, this is to rip somebody's home apart
Oh.
would actually have been seen as something that you are destroying somebody else's property.
Sure.
They can then
Sure.
do something to you. You would have to ask for forgiveness. This is not something they're doing where it's not known that this is something that is against Levitical law. So they're destroying somebody else's property.
Right.
If you actually believe this is Peter's house, you also have Peter who, for somebody who has kind of a temper, who's known as having a temper.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a good call.
He's actually pretty calm here
Yeah.
because if somebody's ripping a hole in your roof, he's don't really mention him being upset, but I imagine
He was probably fuming a bit.
Yeah.
probably a little upset.
Yeah.
So they ripped the hole off of this roof, and it's a scandal already, and it's messy and it's loud, and there are all these things happen. Sometimes we think about it. It's this very quick moment of them ripping a hole in and lowering them down. This would have taken a lot of time,
Right.
a lot of noise, a lot of debris. And so everybody has their focus now on what's going on. And then they look up and there's this man being lowered down to where Jesus is in this house. And it is, I don't know what everyone would have been thinking, but Jesus knew. He knew that this person was coming to be healed. Everybody else is looking and going, what is this? Is this a robbery? Are these people crazy? Are
Is this
they
a robbery?
nuts? What's going on here? Because they're literally putting a hole in a roof and lowering somebody down.
Yeah. I mean, it's super intense, right? I mean, this is, you have to imagine that these people have such faith, such intense, I think the word that you use is confidence in in him. That's what in Luke 5 in the AMP version, it says, when Jesus saw their active faith springing from confidence in him. They didn't push their way through a crowd. They weren't able to. Maybe they didn't. I don't know which one it was, but like they weren't letting anything, including Peter's roof, get in their way. Not timber, not roof materials, not the people below. They said, nothing is standing in my way of getting in front of this Jesus man. Like the intensity of that belief, the strength of them, the boldness of them, the audacity of them. before we get into it, that's what this story is about to me. It's about being bold and going beyond what anybody, like you said, it would have been a huge faux pas in Jewish culture to do this.
Yes.
And they said, forget tradition, forget the way it's supposed to be. I'm doing this because it's right.
Yeah,
I'm
we got to
doing
get
it
to him.
They had
We
to.
have to get to Jesus.
And-
We have to get to this healing guy that's walking around our town, healing everyone. I got to see it for myself, but also I believe he could do it for my friend.
Yeah, this wasn't, and to your point, it wasn't even that they wanted to see it. This wasn't like a fan perspective. They wanted to play in the game, and they weren't letting anything stop them. And like, I'm sure we'll get to it later, but like, this is what we all need to be in life, right? Like, we need to say, forget tradition, forget the people around me, the consequences around me, whatever's going to. They might have all thought they were going to go to jail. Well, there was no jail. But they might have thought there would have been penalties to be paid or whatever, and they said, "I don't care."
I don't care.
And that's what we all kind of need to live like that.
I mean, we all need friends like that.
We do. That's it. We all need friends like that.
We all need companions and friends like that. I mean, you were saying this thing in the beginning. I just feel like he was paralyzed. He couldn't really get there himself. So saying that I'm saying like we were looking for healing. He was looking for help, I could say. And his friend said, I'm going to help you with this. You obviously can't do it yourself. He hasn't come around to your corner or your house. Let me bring you to this man that heals. And they have this faith. They have this encouragement. They love this guy and they wanted him to get healed.
Or he didn't have faith and just his friends did.
That's what I was thinking.
It actually doesn't say that the paralytic had faith.
That's what I was thinking, because this actually reminds me when we talked about Job. Job's friends were forgiven because of him. And this is another example of somebody being forgiven, or, I mean, he is forgiven of his sins. That's what he says.
Yep.
You're healed and forgiven of your sins because of your friends. And so this is another one of those millions of little consistencies that are in the Bible throughout. And if there's a lesson to be learned, it's, there's always people who can bring you up if you're around.
Well, yeah, I believe that. And I think we see that there with the friends, but we also see there's another story, obviously, that Jesus also heals another paralyzed man.
Yes.
Jesus goes to him.
Yes.
Obviously, he has to. He's paralyzed. Well, this guy, I think, I'm not saying as does say he had faith or not. What I'm trying to say is he couldn't go and reach Jesus himself.
Right.
And obviously, at the end, Jesus says, well, your faith is healed, not to the friends. He says to the guy.
This is the beauty of all,
your forgiveness.
Not to flip topics, but this is the beauty of all the miracles to me, is that they're all taken part in with these subtle nuances that put the different stories into play. One paralytic was approached by Jesus.
Yeah.
He didn't have the faith in the moment. Jesus basically told him he should, and then he did, and then he was healed.
Yeah.
In this case, the guy, we don't know whether he did or not, but it wasn't because of him. It was because of the friends.
But I also think this had to happen this way. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
The grand entrance of this man getting healed, for it to happen the way it had to happen in front of all these people, and the story says in front of Pharisees.
Well, and also we have to remember, and this is the part in the beginning when I said, there's a big ruckus for a reason. This is all happening. Nobody knows what's going on, but Jesus does. And when he gets lowered down, Jesus doesn't ask, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
What is it about? Because anybody else would have been like, why'd you just put a hole? Yeah, why'd you just put a hole in this roof? What's going on? He says, because of your faith.
I love that.
I mean, it's just instantly he jumps right in and he goes, when he saw their faith, he said, man, your sins are forgiven you. Now, he's seeing their faith. He's healing without knowing anything, without knowing the situation. He knows it because he's Jesus, but nobody else does. And he goes right into this. And, this is something that happens that is really amazing is people look at this and they go, the Pharisees saw him and he was blaspheming because he was saying that you're forgiven. And they go through this whole, this whole thing about, how can you say that somebody's forgiven and all of that? But it goes further than that. Forgiveness of sins, aside from Jesus, them not saying he has the power to forgive sins, because in the temple, when people go and sacrifice, they are forgiving their sins. When you do the high holy day of atonement, your Yom Kippur, you are atoned of your sins. So humans have told other people they're atoned. The problem's not that with this one. The problem is it's always done in a temple with some sort of tradition. This is the part that's not happening. They're going, who are you?
Well, it's happening in
somebody's
God's house.
And somebody else's just normal
It's
home.
usually happening in God's house where they believe that God is able to do that.
Wow.
And this is the first time it's outside that. and they're seeing that the power isn't coming from the temple; it's coming from the person.
Yes.
And that's a huge.
Never noticed that. Okay.
That's that's a huge deal. This is a turning point in all of this
Yeah,
stuff.
this is not a sacred space.
I also want to note that like there's the line in Matthew 9, and again I always read AMP, so I'm always saying the same thing. But do not be afraid, son. Your sons are forgiven. The AMP continues by saying the penalty is paid, the guilt removed, and you are declared to be in right standing with God.
Yeah.
Right. So this is what because one of the first times I read this, I was like, oh, he's not actually healed; he's forgiven. So what's the connection between being forgiven and being healed? And particularly in the Old Testament times before this, maybe you can speak a little bit more to this, but some of those healings were necessary because the sickness came from previous sin.
They did believe that. They believed that if you were a sinful person, you were going to get.
It was a punishment.
Yeah, it was God's punishment
right,
for you.
Right.
So yes, this is something that occurs, and this is something that is seen throughout the Old Testament, particularly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yes, there would have been a lot of Jewish people here who would have thought, well, this paralytic must have done something wrong.
Right.
He's not going through the proper steps of atoning for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this man in a non-sacred space is just healing him.
And that's what I love about this story, and that's what I get out of it. It's that. Wait a minute. How do you have the power to? I mean, this man did sin. He had sin. That's why he's paralyzed. How can you forgive him? Where Jesus is going, man, you just came through the roof. You forgive him, man. Like you have faith.
Right.
You have so much faith. You're going as the simplicity of having faith in Jesus is the beautiful thing for me. Salvation is that simple. Just having faith in God. What is it? The faith of a mustard seed, right? And just kind of believing in God could do that. Believing in God to go, hey, I'm sorry, I did something wrong, and you're forgiven.
Yeah,
go on and stop sinning. I love that fact of this faith. You don't have to jump through these hoops, these extra stuff. You just believe, and God will make your life. He'll turn your life around.
And you're making me think of something else too. Again, these guys overcame tradition. They said, I don't care about the penalty of what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I'm not embarrassed by what I'm doing here. They went through, imagine their position when they decided to do this thing and they had no idea what was going to happen.
Right.
And then Jesus says, you are forgiven. And they walk away free, to the best of our knowledge. They walk away free, and literally their friend walks with them.
He walks away, yeah.
Like, sometimes we have to be willing to take the huge, scary, unknowable next step in order to get this other kind of peace that we didn't even believe was possible. And I think that's a really cool part of the story as well.
That's amazing.
The other thing, which is, this is now I'm getting a little bit larger in scale.
Let's do it.
With symbolism, but the paralytic was also a representation of exile in Judaism. So this is also a conversation where Jesus is literally healing the paralytic. So he is ending exile, the exile of the Jews. And now it is the Pharisees going, who are you to say that you can remove the exile? And he's saying, I have the power on earth to do this.
Right.
I have the power on earth to do whatever I want to do. And it becomes a larger story, potentially theologically.
But it took people standing up for it to bring it to him in order to do it. So it couldn't happen without some sort of catalyst.
It was an
and
intercessory.
These are four catalysts for that removal of exile.
Yep.
Since we're going down the symbolism road, let's also talk about the fact that the paralyticism, or whatever you want to call it, is the inability to move. It's being stuck, right? So spiritually, it's somebody who can be stuck. This can be symbolic of somebody who's stuck. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They can't get anywhere without themselves. Every time they try, they go nowhere. And their friends are the ones who picked them up and physically carried him to God.
Yeah.
And God said, you are free from this stuckness.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's so many stories. There always are.
And even earlier than that, when you look at, you have friends who have faith and they can pick you up when you're broken.
Totally.
And bring you to a place where you can be healed and unstuck.
Right.
So it goes even further with the symbolism of, who are you surrounding yourselves with? Who in your life are you surrounding yourself with? That in those moments when you are spiritually stuck and paralyzed, will lift you up and carry you to that person, God.
Literally put your weight on their back.
Yep.
They will carry you the extra distance that you need to go, even if you're not able to.
Yeah.
But then you're able, but there comes a point when you're able to stand up and walk for yourself again.
That's it.
That's good.
Your restoration really does come through others sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think we take it upon
comes,
ourselves.
It comes through others and through God.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think at times we look at it and we go, I have to this, I have to that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a matter of fellowshipping with the right people to go,
Yeah.
listen, at times when I'm spiritually low, and it's going to happen in
Right.
everybody's life, if they think it's not, they
Yeah.
haven't lived this Christian life
No.
long enough.
Yeah.
When you were low, who have you surrounded yourself with? You bring up Job, and Job's friends clearly were not
Exactly.
giving him the right advice.
Yeah.
And he could have followed it. He didn't, but he could have followed it all the way through.
Right.
Yeah.
And here you have
Yeah.
these friends who, because of their faith in Jesus,
Yeah.
the friend gets healed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Job could have followed his friends that could have took him
this
down.
is like the complete opposite story of Job, right?
Yeah, he could have followed his friends that could have taken him down, but the paralyzed man believed in his friends that he could get healed.
Yeah.
And they took him down.
Well,
the roof.
faith is contagious, but so is despair. So if you are,
Ouch. You want to say that again?
faith is contagious, but so is despair.
Totally.
So if you are living a life
Yeah.
where you are faithful and you have faithful people around you, you're living positively, you're living for Christ,
Yeah.
it's going to be contagious.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. But if you're living in despair and you're sad and you feel depressed and you feel beaten and you're surrounding yourself with that,
By
it's
people
also
who,
gonna
by also people who think that they deserve to be defeated and beaten
Yes.
and stay there, they're gonna bring you there. You can
Yeah.
even be in a good place and be around people like that, and they're gonna bring you right
They'll
down.
break you down.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
100%.
I've said this before in this podcast, but it's easier for people to bring you down than it is to bring you up. So it's important to me around people who bring you up. I
Right.
mean, it's really, really important. And I think that again, like you said, if you haven't lived in this Christian life long enough,
Yeah.
you haven't seen that you're going to go through these, dark nights of despair. And, yes, you can pray your way out of that hole, but it's a whole lot easier to be pulled out of that hole by people when you're surrounded by the right community.
Yeah.
I love what you said, Jason, because, when he says, what's easier to say, your sins are forgiven or
Yeah.
rise and
Yeah.
walk.
Yeah.
I think it really is the same exact thing, which is, if you are spiritually low, if you're broken spiritually, what's easier to say is you're forgiven. You can come to me
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
forgiven already, or rise and walk this Christian lifestyle. It really is one and the same. I think it's beautiful. It's a beautiful symbolic thought of,
Yeah.
the rise and walk really is,
Yeah.
take up your Bible and follow.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you talked earlier about the exile, right? And the symbolism of Jesus getting rid of this being the symbol of the exile being. And that's the other interesting part about the story, even though we're kind of past that story now, is like he does this miracle and the Pharisees go, "Who are you?"
Right.
Mhm.
And like this is one of those one of the first clashes, and it's in 3 of the 4 books. It's the first clash where the Pharisees are going, "Who are you?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Why are you doing things in God's name without doing them in God's temple? Who are you to believe that you're capable
Yeah.
of doing these things?"
Yeah. And he said it.
And he said it.
He said, "I'm the Son of Man, and I have authority to, authority on earth to forgive sins."
Yeah. I mean, so this is the beginning. This is like the precursor to the big battles that are coming, and I think that's also pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of this passage, after he picks up and walks,
Which one's that in Mark?
this is in Luke 5,
Okay.
5:25, and immediately
Yep.
he rose up before and picked up what he'd been lying on and went home, glorifying God. And amazement seized them all, and they glorified God and were filled with awe, saying, "We have seen extraordinary things today."
That's awesome.
And I think about that, I go, who all?
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, it's Pharisees and teachers, but there's also people in the house, such as the disciples
Right.
and other people looking for whether it's healing or miracles or whatever, or just teachings. They're all amazed. And I'm going,
All.
who is all?
All.
Does that mean the
All.
Pharisees?
All is an important word there, isn't it?
It is. It is. Is this a moment where we know that not all Pharisees were against Jesus and not all,
Right.
so is
Well, it
this?
says they were all astonished and then began glorifying God.
Mhm.
So were there Pharisees who were converted in that moment to think, maybe
Yeah.
this is my thing?
Yeah, I love that little word, just that all. And they had seen extraordinary things today. They knew, like you said earlier, the healing wasn't from the power of the temple or the sacrifice to God. This was a single man in an unsacred place who's able to heal.
Yeah.
And this was something that was extraordinary for them to see
Yeah.
because they had never seen that before. Pharisees would have been around for a long time studying.
Yes.
They would have known this is not an ordinary act.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't do it in secret, and I love that about Jesus. And I mean, he had his timing for certain healings that he didn't want people to know, or just wasn't his time. But here, obviously, he was on his road to show that he is the Son of Man. He's here. He has authority, and he's here to heal. So he did it in publicly, and I think this is the setup for him to do it in front of them and going, "Hey, look, I just healed this man. I am the Son of Man. I am the person. I am the person that you guys been praying about and want. I am the Messiah."
I stop and think sometimes, it's easy to look at these things from the 10,000 foot view and go, oh, that's cool. There's a miracle. And then I stop and think, what if I was really in that room and I really watched this thing happen? What if I really watched, I was already like interested in this guy.
Yeah.
And then this crazy thing happens. This guy gets pulled down. He's clearly paralytic. But then imagine standing in this room and you're curious about this guy and he's teaching great stuff. And then all of a sudden you see this crazy thing happen. These guys go way out of their way. And then he gets healed.
Yeah.
Like, what a crazy feeling that's got to feel like. And then when it ends by saying, we have seen wonderful, incredible things today, like, that's not just words. Like, we have seen wonderful and incredible things we can't. I'm even going to the heart of the word incredible. Incredible means unbelievable. Things I have a hard time believing. The etymology of that word is unbelievable. In Spanish, it's increíble, right?
Wow.
So incredible, uncredible, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, I think about that and it like, this had to be such a spectacular moment.
Oh,
it had to be an amazing moment. And even for these Pharisees, it had to be like you ever see somebody when they know they're wrong, but they can't let it go. And they're like, inside they're fighting it, but outside they're fighting it, but inside they're like, what?
Yeah.
what just happened?
Yeah.
And I'm imagining that moment and how incredible and how wonderful and how wild and like life shattering that moment must have been for so many people. I don't know. It's just a beautiful thought. It's a crazy thought.
Yeah.
And like, you have to know that the beginning of the end is coming or the end of the beginning or whichever one of those you want to choose. But like, that's got to be a signal that the world's about to change.
Yeah. Something's here, right?
Yeah. But the other thing I really love is like the last thing Jesus says in this verse in Luke 5 is, I say to you, he says to the paralyzed man, I say to you, get up, pick up your stretcher and go home. I heard it said by one of the pastors in the church, and I don't remember which one. I think it was Pastor Eric, but I love this thought. He said, why did he say that? And why is that so important? It's important because when you are healed, when Jesus comes to you and says, this is your moment, I'm fixing this for you, I'm taking this away from you, this is it, you can't sit still. You can't just stay still at that moment and keep living the same life you were living. You have to move on.
Yeah.
And in fact, you need to move on. You need to go do things differently. You need to act differently. Remember, they thought this was about a sin too. You need to not sin in the same way.
Yeah.
You need to change your life. You need to literally, physically, mentally, and spiritually move on. And I found that so intense of a thought. It's like when we are going through something and we finally find our way out of it, that's an invitation to never do what got you in that in the first place.
Yeah.
And you need to respect that.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you said it good. I think it's so cool to the way you kind of explain that, because it's true. Once you give your life to Christ, you're not the same, and you should not act like it.
You shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Now, imagine the celebration after those guys, like them and their friend. They were like, "Dude, you were right."
Yeah.
That's got to be a fun story too. We should dig that one up someday.
We had done an episode. We just did an episode on Samson.
Yeah.
And Samson.
Did we, David?
We did. By the time this comes out, yes. We did. But the power of God was in Samson for his strength.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting in the beginning of this, you have the setting up of everything. And the line is, and the power of the Lord was with him to heal. You're talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
The power was within him to heal. This isn't the strength to again, remember, this is that parallel where Samson was there killing people and Jesus is here healing people.
Yeah.
And his power is in him specifically to heal. And when you think about that and you think about going through something and picking up your bed and moving and you have to keep going. And this is that healing moment where the healing is not, okay, I'm healed, let me lay here a little bit longer.
Yeah.
It is, hey, I've healed you. It's time to get moving.
Yeah.
It's time to be on fire for the Lord
Yeah.
and go out there and do all the things you wanted to do that will honor God.
And to show off your new gift. Look,
Yes.
imagine one of the only 4 people who knew he was paralytic before. Now the guy's going to go run around and play soccer in his hometown. They're going to be like,
You're
what happened
funny.
to you? You know what I mean? Like he's going to. So all of a sudden he is going to become a testimony.
Yes.
His story is going to become what converts others, what
at the
changes the
very
minds of
least,
others,
that's
right?
At the
great.
very least, you're sharing your testimony.
At the very least, right? And so and
And we see that and throughout all the healing, like we talked about the woman at the well, right? She went into town, the first kind of evangelist, right? There's this now you're healed. Now you know who the Messiah is. He's changed your life. Now go tell,
Now
your
go tell
testimony.
people,
Yeah, go
right?
share people.
Even when he tells you not to tell somebody, or even
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they
the
still
order,
do it.
they're going to know.
Yeah.
Obviously, you said this paralytic is going home.
Yeah.
He's not going somewhere else. He's going home, and they're going to know that something miraculous happened. So even when you don't go out there and knock on doors and say, "Hey, do you know about Jesus?" Just by being different, just
Right.
by having Jesus in you,
right.
people are going to see it. They're going to go, look
Right.
at the way he walks. Look at the way.
Look at the way he
Yeah.
smiles. Look at the way he
All
shines.
of
Look
it.
at the way
Yeah.
he helps.
He's walking around with his mat and then going, "What's that mat for?"
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was paralyzed
Yeah.
and somebody healed me.
I mean, and again, and look at that in the modern day sense, right? Like now it's like, look how kind he is when he didn't used to be. Look how willing that guy is to help others.
Yeah.
Look how generous that guy is. Look how, with his time,
Yeah.
whatever. Like that's what we're
Yeah.
called to do. Like we don't have to have paralyticism. I don't know why I can't find the word for that.
Yeah.
And healed in order to go show how we've changed. What's been healed
Yeah.
for us. Our challenges have been
No, I
healed.
love
Our
that.
pain has been healed.
You're right. You're healed. You go and do something, whether it's something relating to your illness that you had before or not. You being different, you being a light. People are gonna ask you like, where do you get this happiness from?
Yeah.
Why are you helping me? It's like, well, I once was blind, but now I can see. So
Amen.
And
You know?
his friends, they're going to go and pray for everybody at this
Right.
point.
Yeah.
They're going to look what
Yeah.
we did.
they're gonna get
We're praying for everybody. But this changes right here. This changes 3 lives instantly. It changes the lives of the 2 friends who lowered him down.
right.
There was
Who
2.
are
I think there's
seeing-
4.
It might be 4.
It'd have to be 4, wouldn't there?
Well,
Oh, I guess if they were holding 2 edges, I never. Oh, you know, it never occurred to me that there might be 2.
it didn't to me either. That
Never
there'd be
occurred to
4.
me. I thought there had to be 4 because there had to be one person on each
There you
corner
go.
holding a rope.
Well, it'll
Oh.
change the
Little
lives of the friends and the paralytic. I mean, he's changing multiple lives in one act.
Totally.
One miraculous act.
And all the people
Um,
who watched it.
So yeah, I mean, this is and this is a reward. Listen, their faith. We look at the reward of the paralytic going, he gets to walk.
Yeah.
But it's also the
Ooh, that's good.
faith of now the friends who are there lowering him down, going. I mean, the gift that they get, knowing
Right.
that their faith is not in vain.
Yeah.
I mean, man, what a gift to so many people out there struggling with their faith. What a gift that would be to go. I am 100% sure.
Wow.
That,
Yeah.
that my faith is well placed.
Yeah. That's super. So, what an episode, guys. Yeah. Look, this is about surrounding yourself with the right people, people who are godly and Christian and walking the right path. They're good and they can bring you up when you are down.
Yeah.
Or
Lower you down.
or lower you down to bring you up.
yeah, there you go.
There you go. So the question is, who are you spending time with?
That's a good question.
So you should take a moment to think about that because it may not be a comfortable answer. But and if it's not, then you should probably look into spending some time with some other people.
Right.
So guys, we appreciate you spending time with us.
Absolutely.
It's always fun, always enjoyable. We always learn something, and we hope you are too. Let us know if you are on the socials. Let us know
Yes.
on email. Send us text messages. Tap us on the shoulder. Send us smoke signals. You name it. We're here.
Yeah.
We enjoy this. We enjoy your feedback, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks a
Have
lot.
a blessed week.
See you guys.